What's up, everyone? I'm so glad that you're joining me this week. I'm your host, Ryan McCarty. We talk about everything people, culture, engagement. So this week, I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to Champion Your Culture. All right. So there we go. Now I'm not muted. So welcome to our first podcast, Champion Your Culture. So excited to have all of you with me today. And if you're messaging me on LinkedIn, I'm doing my best to, this is a one-man show here, y'all. So hopefully you can hear me. Somebody please text me. Let me know that I'm actually live. I have no idea what's going on. But so glad that you're here. And obviously the first reason someone's like, well, what is this? Why is this a podcast and not just a regular live video? Well, this is going to go not only just here on LinkedIn, but also all over all the podcasting sites. So you'll be able to get it on Apple iTunes and everywhere else that you can listen to podcasts. Make sure you check us out. We'll be going live every single week on LinkedIn and across all different platforms to be able to get messaging out for those of us that are championing people and culture. The second reason this is a podcast and not just a regular video is because I bought a podcast mic. So there you go. For those that we haven't met, I'm Ryan McCarty. I'm so excited that you're here. A little background about me. So for 20 years prior to stepping into the business world, I was in full-time ministry. Actually started preaching when I was 14 years old. Found a lot of meaning and purpose and just this unbelievable connection to what I was doing every single day. It's what now, as we're talking about this more and more in business, I understood why I was doing what I was doing, which is very familiar to the nonprofit ministry type space, because that space, you start with a sense of purpose. You want to get involved in serving others. It's really intrinsic to how we're created or how we're fashioned or how we're wired, whatever you want to say. It just, the makeup of who we are, the reality of that is that we seek and long for that sense of meaning and purpose, almost like answering the question, what on earth am I here for? Like what am I in business for? What do I work for every single day? Why is it that what I'm doing actually matters, like beyond just a paycheck, beyond just simply wanting to get work done every single week and then move on and get back to work the next Monday, and just this cycle. And I think during the pandemic, what we found was that so many of us took a moment to pause, didn't we? I mean, you took a moment to pause, you as a leader, and you know that every single person on your team paused, every person that works for you, all your employees, your team members, whatever cool new phrase or terminology you want to use for employees, your team members, your contributors, they all took a pause as well. Not only your employees, your customers did. And your customers paused and they said, why am I spending the money where I'm spending it? And we're looking for meaning, not only in where we work, but who we do business with, the B2B space, but also just me as a customer, right? Me walking in the door to your retail location, or maybe paying for your service to come in and wire my house with internet, or whatever it is that's connected to your service and what you do. The reason is y'all. I mean, that's intrinsically within us. We're wired for that, to serve others, to look at others and say, what is the need in this world that I can contribute toward with what I have and who I am? And I think that's so crucial to identifying that for ourselves, because we have to understand that we're not doing that in by ourselves in a vacuum. Like all of us collectively have paused. And now it feels as though we are right back at the whirlwind of business, and we're all having to just dive right back in, and we're not dealing with the realities of the pause and then just jumping right into the water. And so many of us are now just right back into that kind of work mode, right, where we're just doing and not really feeling fulfilled. And I think that is what I recognized, having transitioned out of those 20 years of ministry and nonprofit work, was coming into corporate business world, that there's this amazing opportunity for each one of us to discover that same sense of meaning and purpose through our work. And we don't necessarily have to stop doing what we're doing in terms of where we work and what we do. We should be able to experience that right where we work, right? Like we should be able, with what we do every single day, connect it to a higher why, a greater sense of purpose, a sense of calling in our work. You know, I used to talk about it in the ministry world, that there's the difference between a occupation and a vocation. A vocation is like an occupation with a great sense of purpose. And that's what we're talking about when we champion culture. We're creating or curating as leaders experiences for us first, and then for our team members, our customers, and also, by the way, our community. You see, if we're going to make the world better, we have to make the workplace better, because I believe that work and business can be a great force for good. That profitability and profit is it's not evil. It's actually a very good catalyst for amazing good to take place in each one of our communities where we operate our business. And so today I want to talk about this idea of engagement in terms of post-pandemic engagement. How do we champion people post-pandemic? How do we really rally behind our employees? And that's what we're talking about with championing someone. I mean, just think of the word champion in itself, the ideas that come to mind. You think of someone on top of a mountain. We've all seen that, you know, picture that's posted on socials, where the person's standing with their arms raised and the sun's shining through the clouds just on their head, and you know, and people are cheering them on, and they've kind of like, they're the champion. I think about the song, we could sing it together, "We are the champions, my friend." That's how I write off on all of my, or sign off on all of my emails. We're the champions, my friend, because I believe that in order to engage employees today, engage community today, and our customers, that engagement looks quite different than what it did pre-pandemic. Now, let's be honest, pre-pandemic, it wasn't any good either, right? I mean, the statistics, if we were to follow them for decades, we haven't really increased our engagement scores across the board. They've generally stayed where you've got a good amount of about 30% that are really engaged in their work, that are really tied into the purpose and the mission and the values and the way of life. I call it the way of life, because that's really what culture is. If we're going to champion culture, we have to understand what culture is first. So let's start with that. So culture is how most people feel, believe, and behave most of the time. So there's no perfect culture, but I always like to say it this way: yours does not have to suck. And the way that your culture doesn't have to suck is that you recognize that how most people are feeling is that first indicator, or that understanding of culture, not just how to be able to know whether your culture is really engaging people or not. But honestly, like, how are we curating experiences for people to feel connected, to feel engaged with the overall culture, to feel like the values that we list on a wall are really our way of life, you know? Because if we're going to call culture how most people feel, believe, and behave most of the time, I would say that's the way of life of your business. Another way of saying it, it's your heartbeat. Another way of saying it, it's doing business with soul. Your business has a soul, and your business is not just an organization, it's an organism. It's alive, it's breathing, there's humans involved. It feels things, it goes through ups and downs and trials and adversity, and your organization collectively as an organism feels. So the question that I have for you is, first, how are you feeling today? And just let's take a moment, because I want to champion you. If you're a leader of leaders, a leader of people, I want to encourage you to really, really understand that the first person that you need to champion in your workplace and in your business is you. You leaders need to learn how to champion you, to really rally behind yourself and really encourage yourself and really understand that at the end of the day, if you lead yourself well, and if you champion yourself well, and if you really learn how to not just love what you do every day, but to love who you are. Oh God, I know we all have mistakes and hang-ups and issues. Pass the tissues, we all have issues. We all have issues. We all got stuff. We're all a mess. You know, and the reality is, if you're waiting for yourself to be a perfect leader, you'll never love yourself. If you're waiting for yourself to be a human that doesn't screw stuff up all the time, you're going to have a really difficult time loving you. But really, leadership starts with loving. Like, we can't love, or you can't lead others until you really have a sense of love for them. Now, you can direct them. I'm not saying that there aren't people that we don't follow direction from that don't love us. I mean, there's all that. I'm talking about leadership. I'm not talking about a boss bossing or a manager managing. I'm talking about a leader leading. Leaders first love people. That's why they lead them. Because really, if you want to lead yourself, you can't do that till you first love yourself. It all starts with that, doesn't it? It all starts with the heartbeat, you know? That's where leadership is. That's where you'll find that leadership right here. Check this out. It's right in the heart, you know? This is it. That beating heart, like, that's what it's about. That's the impact of your business right there. What you see on your screen for that second, that is like, that's your culture. And the question is, how healthy is your heart, right? Like, is your heart health well? Like, how is your heartbeat of your business? So post-pandemic, the one challenge that I keep hearing over and over that I wanted to speak about and maybe give some ways to connect was this really huge challenge of all the engagement programs that we had prior to the pandemic. And then it feels like we lost like 2 years of business. I don't know about you, but I was just talking to a colleague yesterday, and Alex, big shout out to Alex. And we were talking about just the fact that 2 years just seemed gone, right? Just like, I don't even know what happened to them. And now, as we're approaching this new reality of work post-pandemic, we can't just act like nothing happened. We can't just go back on neutral and just assume that our culture is just going to be what it is, and that's a good culture because maybe you had one before. I think the greatest challenge right now is not even initial engagement. I mean, we kind of know the steps to do that, don't we? in terms of recruiting and, presenting the company in a certain way and positioning it on social medias and hiring someone cool for social media so we look like a cool company and giving people flex hours. There's all kinds of perks and things that we can add, but really those aren't the differentiators that I recognized having come out of nonprofit work into for-profit work. What's the thing that keeps us during tumultuous change? What's the thing that what's our anchor? What's our North Star? It's our why. It's why we do what we do in the first place. And I think first loving ourselves as leaders and then learning how to lead ourselves by knowing our why, by understanding and discovering why we do what we do every single day. Because guess what? That's engagement. People don't engage with programs. They engage with purpose. Like you can't just start another program in your business. That's why I wanted to say that every podcast moving forward is sponsored by Culture of Good. I hope you know that. Check out this new hat I got. It's like a captain hat. I'm going to call it the champion hat. cultureofgood.com. Check it out. There's all kinds of culture programs. And that's why we at the Culture of Good decided like we can't just do another program. We have to really learn what is it going, how are we going to engage, and how are other companies going to engage in a way that is real and authentic, and that's led by leaders that actually care, that have empathy, that feel a sense of calling themselves, that are inspired by their work, that know why they show up to work every single day. And it's not a program, guys, it's purpose. So Culture of Good and our champion program, you could check that out, is not just a program, it's a certification. And you go back into your company and really champion your culture and your people. Because if we're talking about championing culture, we're not talking about a program. We're talking about it's empowering people to not just come to work and get work done, but empowering them to engage with the purpose and the mission and the overall driving force for good of your business, of your organization. And listen, I don't care if you are a solopreneur and you're doing your own thing and you're on your own by yourself, or you run a global conglomerate organization across the world. Really doesn't matter. What you lead every day is people, human beings. Like we have to understand that. So when we talk about engagement, there's not a 12-step program in this. Obviously, what we need to understand, and we need to look at our business and recognize that it's not about engagement now, it's about re-engagement. And when it's about re-engagement post-pandemic, it's about continuing to re-engage. And I'm just going to suggest this as one very practical way that you could start to structure your engagement now, is really re-engaging your employees, your customers, and your community in some way every single quarter, intentionally. Planned, prescribed, predictable, promised, follow through, do it every single quarter. What's unique about what we do at Culture of Good is we streamline all three of those stakeholder groups into one effort every quarter, but you can do it however you want. Every single quarter, it is imperative, again, to re-engage, not engage, re-engage every single quarter your key stakeholder groups. Who are those? Your employees, your customers, and your community. Now you might ask, well, how do we do that? That's a great question. There's a process and there's work involved, but you can design that and you can create that. But you have to know that in each one of those stakeholder groups of your employees, customers, and community, you also have within those groups different groups of employees. You have different teams, you have different types of employees. You might have employees that are temps. You might have employees that are field employees. Your employees may be all scattered all over the city or all over the country. They may all be remote. You might be working with a hybrid workforce. Listen, I don't give a care. I don't care. It does not matter. Every single company and business can be a force for good and engage and re-engage their employees, but they have to do it predictably every single quarter. This isn't a program. It's a strategy. It's a process. How you do that is up to you. I can suggest all kinds of things. The one thing that we do with Culture of Good is we teach companies how to engage their employees and their customers by doing community good every quarter. And that's a whole nother thing and a process that we certify champions in to go back into their companies and run that process. But it's still not a program because it's authentic. It speaks back to the soul of the business. It says there's a purpose behind why you come to work every single day or why you do business with us. It's because we have a heartbeat. And so, again, employees are going to engage with your purpose, not with your programs. Purpose. What's the purpose of your business? What's the mission? Oh, not just what you have on the wall or the statement. Like, what is the purpose? If I were to ask every single employee in your company, what's the purpose of your business? How would they answer? Well, sure, profitability, right? Because every business, the first purpose is like to be profitable, but I would say the second part of that purpose is to know why you're in business in the first place. Because profitability can be seasonal. And if you don't know why you're in business in the first place, your why is what sustains you. What re-engages employees is the why of your business that aligns with the why of their passion and their heart. It's that heartbeat of your company and the heartbeat of the employee and the rhythm of that aligning. How do you align the heartbeat of your business to the heartbeat of each person, each stakeholder, your employees, your customers, and your community? Well, you got to know who they are. Who are you serving? Not just your customers, your employees. Who are they? Like, really, who are they? What makes them tick? Are they mostly extroverts, introverts? Like, are they remote? Do they want to come back into the workplace? Are they rocking their workout at home? And you're like, okay, now we don't know what to do because they're not coming back in, but we're better together. So what do? We'll get together every single quarter. Listen, 30% or less of employees generally know the purpose of their business in the company that they work for. Very similar to the same statistic as to who's actually engaged, like fully engaged, not like coming to work and just kind of skeeting through, right? Not just getting through and doing just enough work so you don't get fired. I'm talking about contributors, people that believe that when they come to work every single day, that gives them that sense of meaning and that sense of purpose. And so what I recognized is that 50, 60 years ago, that employees showed up to work and really felt this sense of loyalty to their work. And we could sit around all day, guys, and talk about how, oh God, if people don't have any loyalty anymore. Well, tough shit, you know? That the reality is they have about as much loyalty to you as you do to them. Let's be real. If they leave, you replace them. It's not like you're married. Okay. Now 50, 60 years ago, you were married, right? You got the gold watch and that was the wedding ring. You retired, you got your severance, your retirement. And, that was the culture. And honestly, like that just worked. Doesn't work now. And it didn't work about 20 or 30 years ago, probably actually a little, more in the early 80s, we started looking at, okay, employees do not want to get married to us. So what's a little less than marriage? Engagement, right? So we're like, what if we just like started engaging? Like we're not going to ask you to work for us the rest of your life. We just want to be engaged. And engagement programs went nuts. And, we got all hyped up because we saw Google putting in like, slides and sleep pods. And then you had some of you in offices like, maybe we should get sleep pods. And you've got like 5 people in there in your office, and you're trying to be cool, and then there's beer on Fridays, craft beer, and then you go from suits to jeans and blah blah blah, and it's all engagement stuff. And you realize like after a while that some of that surface stuff, it's cool to have a fun culture. I'm not saying everybody needs to be stuffy and wear suits all the time. I mean, geez, but honestly, that's just such a surface level of engagement. What I did in nonprofit work was engage people's souls, their hearts, the heartbeat. The soul is the heartbeat and the intellect combined. What I know and what I feel, what I believe deep down inside of me becomes how I behave. Remember, culture is how most people feel, believe, and behave most of the time. Most of us are focused on if we could just get people to behave better. But the reality is that's not what works. What works is the idea of feeling turning into belief. And once I believe something, my behavior follows that. And so in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, leading up to earlier in the pandemic, it was about engagement. Now, guess what? It's not that anymore. Employees just want to date. like you're courting. And that's why the engagement post-pandemic is all about having a predictable cadence of re-engagement of your employees, your customers, and your community. How are you? What have you put into place? Now it can be events, it could be giving back to community, it's anything that brings people together, either your employees, your customers, or all at the same time, like we do at Culture Good. We do it all at once. It takes far less effort, less resources. We certify a champion to run that throughout the organization. And the reality is, guys, that every single quarter, there's a call to us as leaders within our organizations to re-engage the people that we lead. And you're not just leading employees, you're leading customers and you're leading community. And it's important, so important for us to, as leaders, whether you have a team in an organization or you lead the organization. Now, let me speak specifically to those of you that are already championing people and culture through your work. Keep doing it. One of the greatest obstacles you're going to face is not having leadership buy-in. And so next week, we're going to talk directly about how to launch culture work within your business authentically by getting first leadership buy-in. So some of you have a difficulty with saying to your manager, your boss, we really need to do this work. Like this engagement is important. And I've got 1 minute left, so track with me. It's really important for us as leaders to begin to love ourselves, lead ourselves, recognize who our employees, our customers, and our community are, know them, and engage with them on a quarterly basis in ways, listen, that are fulfilling and meaningful and tied directly into the purpose of your business. What is the purpose of your business? Next week, I'll give you steps on discovering the purpose and mission of your business, and then how to get leadership buy-in, where you're able to connect every leader at every level of your business and engage them and empower them every single quarter to engage and empower their team. This is good stuff. Thank you for joining me this week on Champion Your Culture. I'll see you next week.